So, week 2 bonus. I thought we'd have a bit of a chat about feeling guilty about painting. I have that feeling every once in a while these days, but I've got to the stage where my habits and routines push that guilt aside. And I see this feeling is coming up for a lot of you. How can I possibly find the time to paint when I've got to make sure the household is ticking along perfectly well? First of all, I've got to wash the dishes, walk the dog, make the tea. But I've got a friend called Theresa, but we call her T, and she's actually delved deep into the subject of selfishness. Why do we feel so guilty doing the things that actually energize us and give us the feeling of us being ourselves, being true to ourselves? Probably more importantly, what do we do about it?
Yeah, so a fun analogy I give is you don't get an iron and not plug it in, right? Because it would be very hard to iron the clothes. You'd get them flattened a bit, right? But it's much better to plug it in to the electricity source and use it like that, right? You're going to get
Yeah,
much further.
yeah. I
So
think the way I look at that is, if ever I do feel guilty, I've got out of the habit of feeling guilty now because I've
yeah,
sort of exercised this a lot. Um, but I
yes,
know when I want to get into a project or get into a certain painting or a way of working, I know it's deep work that's required of me. So I know to jump into that deep end, I've got to turn off the distractions. I've got to turn
yes,
off the almost like, I don't mean the distractions of the phone and the technical bits and pieces around our lives these days. I mean the distractions that are in here. I have to learn how to turn those off.
yeah,
And I think the way I've gone about it is that I acknowledge the guilty feeling that, I've maybe just washed the pots, but that's all I've done today. And I kind of, I don't know if this makes sense, I don't let that guilty feeling make the rules.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. There's a wonderful thing that people might want to look into called focusing. And what you do in focusing is you acknowledge that these are these parts of you. So you have the part of you that's feeling guilty. Love the mug, by the way. You have the part of you that's feeling guilty. Yeah, very appropriate.
It's not mine. It's another cow artist.
Oh, right. Oh, well, perfect. There you are.
We all support one another.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so you have, you might have a part of you that's feeling guilty, a part of you that's feeling, driven, a part of you that's feeling responsible, and so on. But these are all just parts of you.
Yes.
So this part of you that's feeling guilty, to acknowledge that it's just a part. And so in that moment, you become the witness to that part. You are not that part, right? So you're not your guilt.
Yeah.
That would be the danger, to sort of merge yourself as I am guilty, like that's the whole of who you are. So it is just a
I
part of you.
observe guilt. Yeah.
Yes, because as soon as you say, oh, I have the guilt,
yes,
you are now a witness to the guilt.
yes.
And that's great, because now you're a step away from it. But the thing to do is not to say go away guilt, it's to say, oh, poor you, I'd like see it as another person almost, right? And put your arm around it and say, oh, I really understand that sometimes you feel guilty. And no wonder, in your past you've been made to feel guilty or whatever it might be, right? Like, I really understand, I hear you, but let's just give this a little go. Maybe if I promise that we'll do it in a certain way or something, you soothe it basically, and you talk to that part. Because what these parts of us are there, when they come up, they are old, they are from our past, and they just need hearing. They just need to be seen and heard and said, like, I see you, and let's do this, let's go forward. But what do you need? The really good question to ask that part is, what do you need? What do you want from me right now? What would make you feel better?
Okay. And what are the typical responses for that question?
They just so let's see, for guilt, I need to know it's okay. It might be that's what it says.
That reassurance.
Yeah, because that part of you is afraid, right? I need to know that I'm not going to be criticized or seen as flaky or something, right? So what does that part need? It needs to feel the strength of the part of you that is really sure that this is the right thing to do. So
Yeah.
it needs to be seen and felt held by that part of you that does know this is the right thing, and is the sort of adult part of you, if you like, the witness part of you that goes, yeah, no, it will be okay. As soon as that part feels heard like that, it goes.
And in terms of, say, the feelings ladder,
Yes.
and
The
guilt,
energy ladder.
yeah, the guilt being there. What is above guilt? What would be the next step up? How do we know to ourselves that we're feeling better?
Well, that's a very good question. Well, if it gives you relief, then you know.
Yeah.
So anything that gives you relief, anything that sort of just lifts your energy a bit and gives and soothes you and calms you and relaxes you, that sense of relief. So the energy ladder, for those that don't know it, is just a way of taking any kind of emotion and then sort of like slowly moving up the different kinds of feelings that take you further and further up. So it's not. So the idea is that you're not trying to ask yourself to go from, say, deep sadness to joy in one go. So which would be two opposite spectrums of the ladder. You're saying, well, I can go from sadness to anger, because anger actually is a more empowered emotion than hopelessness, for instance, right? So because it's saying, I don't deserve this. No, so, and then obviously you don't want to stay there too long. Oh, you've got it. There you go.
Yeah.
So there you go. So and you've got guilt right down the bottom there, right? Unworthiness, right? So anger is actually above that.
Right. Okay. And that's quite a shock, isn't it? That anger would be, because guilt can be quite a quiet internal thing, can't it? Whereas you expect anger a lot of the time to sort of sneak out, and you very often can see or feel or hear somebody's anger, where you don't always see, hear, feel somebody's guilt.
Yeah, and that is a problem when it's sort of imploded on itself, right? It's the quietness is actually not healthy in lots of ways, right? Because it does belong to that unworthiness and hopelessness and powerlessness that you see at the bottom there, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't count. But when you are angry, you say, I do count. You know what? No, right? It's a powerful emotion. Now, you don't want to stay there, obviously, but to know that actually that is a really good sign that I'm now getting angry. I'm not going to squash myself anymore with this guilt. This guilt is not serving me. And then you've got like discouragement just above it. Do you notice? And discouragement is just a sort of a much milder version. You can come out of discouragement much easier than you can guilt. It's a temporary. It implies it's more temporary.
And isn't it wonderful that when you do something that you love doing, in our case, making art, that you fast track up that emotional scale, because you've got into that flow, and you're heading, you honouring your passion, your enthusiasm, and you're getting into joy.
I'd love to just talk to you about what joy is. So joy is at the top there.
Yeah.
That experience when you get into joy, I mean, I'd love to hear from your point of view what that is, but from my point of view, joy, freedom, love, appreciation, empowerment, all of those things are about being connected to something bigger than ourselves. And as artists, that's what you do so brilliantly, and what you are the possibility for all of us. That's why artists are so important, right? Is that making yourself available to something that is wondrous, that is beyond us. And you may call that God, you may call that spirit, you may call that universe, you may call it just the zone. But there is something, when we experience wonder, we look out at the mountains and we are just filled with something massive, aren't we? And when you're in the zone of painting something, you're really in your zone, you just lose sense of time, you're just loving what you're doing, and you're now you're plugged in, right? That's what we're talking about. Now your iron is plugged in.
And brilliant. I'm glad the iron came back. Now we know where the iron gets plugged in.
Yes. So the iron gets plugged in,
it's warming up, isn't it? Below.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you're kind of plugging in your iron as you go up the ladder, because it's just the moving from guilt to anger. If you think about that, it feels good, doesn't it, to kind of take the power back.
to
And
have a
even though you're in
reaction.
anger,
Yes,
there's life force is now coming through you, right?
yeah.
So we are literally plugged in. So yes, it's still anger. It's not a particularly a great emotion that we want to stick around in. But hey, it's
But we
much
can
better.
use it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's now you're plugged in. You can feel. You see, so we're never going to be permanently in joy. By the way, we're
No,
going to go up and down this scale.
that'd be
But the
flipping
movement,
tiring.
yeah, it would. And we don't want that, like we want to have that experience of movement, because movement gives us energy too, right? That's what being alive is about. Oh, that's great that you had that. I'm glad you had that on the at your fingertips
It
there.
was only as you were talking, it prompted me, because and I actually didn't realize guilt was all the way down there, which
No, yeah. And I can see why, because it was married with unworthiness.
yeah.
And
So self-worth, self-value, self-belief.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So allowing yourself to be suppressed or depressed by something that, and you see, what is all of this? What guilt is about how do I look to other people?
Ah, right. Okay. As in, what's my external presentation?
Yes. And
Oh, right.
it's
Okay.
really, the reason I'm calling my book Selfish, well, that's the sort of working title, is because this is what you're hearing is what I hear from my clients a lot.
Yeah.
And when I ran workshops on the artist way, it came up all the time. Well, surely this
Yeah.
is, and you see, what we all want to do is be of service to others. We all want to, be responsible and be good citizens and be good parents and family members and so on.
Yeah.
But when that becomes our overriding measure of all that we do, then we have lost ourselves. We have lost ourselves. We've given ourselves away, and our relationship with ourselves is pretty sketchy, and that does not feel good. This is where people get sad and anxious and depressed, is because they are no longer feeling able to be who they really are. When the definition for me of a lot of the problems that we face is because we're looking outside of ourselves and saying, I should be doing that, or I have to do that, or this happened to me in the past from somebody else's opinion, according to somebody else, not according to you. So the selfish cry is a cry to sort of come home to yourself and ask yourself the question, is that what you want? Is that what you need? Just asking ourselves, why am I feeling guilty? Because somebody else has got an opinion about it.
Yeah.
You're discounting your own opinion about that. You're living now in their world and not your own.
Yes.
And the reason that that's not a good thing, because people think, oh, well, I've got, I need to be of service. And of course, we all want to be that. We all want to do that. But it's to start a whole new conversation around this. This is my kind of like, yes, come on. Because I do genuinely feel that we could change the world. I mean, the mental health kind of scenario would change completely if people were willing to and felt able to look in their own hearts and follow their own instincts and say, it's okay for me to do things according to what feels right for me, because back to what we were saying before, when it feels good to me, now I'm empowered, now I'm feeling filled up, now I'm sort of connected to source, or whatever you want to call that, spirit. And now I'm juiced up, I've got the electricity plugged in. And now I can really be of service to other people. I'm not doing it out of guilt. I'm not doing it out of have to or should. I'm not doing any of that giving to people because I have to. I'm doing it because I'm so full up myself that it just oozes out of me. And now that giving feels very generous and very genuine. And it's a happy kind of giving. It's a sort of giving that people want, right? It's like nobody wants to be served by somebody who's feeling they have to do it, right?
Harangued.
Like energy attracts like energy. So you've got
so it's a vibrational thing.
It's so a tuning fork, you go ba-ding, and that's tuned to the note C. And any tuning forks that are around that are also tuned to the note C, they will go off by themselves. Consider that when you vibrate at in the energy of guilt, that you are going to attract or set off those people who have guilt in them too.
Ah, right, okay.
So it's the guilt in you that is setting off those other people, but we can look at those people and go, oh, look, it's their fault.
Ah.
So one of the sort of trickier things that I'm inviting people to do in my book is to become really responsible for how they are vibrating. You know, it's up to us if we want to see the change, is to be the change. You know that one, you know? You know, that's what Mahatma Gandhi, I think he said that, didn't he? You know, be
Yes.
to see
Be the change you want to see.
There
Yes.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that points to that, right? It's like, it's your energy. You know, if somebody's full of possibility, then you immediately will gather people around you who love that idea of that possibility. Why? Because they vibrate with that. They tune into that. They resonate with it. And so go ahead.
I was thinking there was two things there. So there's one, recognizing who's vibrating along with you and who's not.
Yes.
So that's one thing, recognizing that.
Yeah.
A second thing is, what do you do with those who are just not, you know? And
brings us nicely back to the ladder.
Right.
Because by being mindful that you're here and really you want to be there, you know that what that's going to require is to somehow change your energy. So insert a new energy, because whilst you're there, you're going to stay there, right? Until some part of that is changing. And we're not talking about leaping, but if you can be down here, and you know, that idea of giving yourself relief, and gradually do anything, no matter how small, to insert a new energy that's not about the guilt. It's not, because you know that whilst you're feeling guilt, you're going to attract all sorts of evidence of why you should be feeling guilty. It's like putting on a pair of glasses with a blue tint on them. Now everything you see will be filtered through that blue tint, and you'll go, oh, everything's quite blue, you know, right? But as soon as you change the filter to, you know, yellow or whatever, then everything's going to look brighter, and now you're walking around going, oh, you know, life's pretty good, right? And somebody is going, well, no, it's pretty dark to me, right? Well, they're wearing a different pair of glasses. In other words, they're vibrating, seeing life through a different way, right?
And it's not our responsibility to change their glasses, is it?
You can't. I mean, give it up. You're not going to change anyone. I can guarantee.
Give it up.
Give it up. No, but you can in one way. So if you change your energy, so you recognize that I have guilt, right? We said that was a really good first step, because now you're distancing yourself from it, and you've got a witness, and so that now you have some facility around that, right? You're kind of you have some agency with that, because you're not merged with it, you see it. And now you can start to say, right, what do I want? You know, I want to have art in my life. And that makes me feel good, and actually I really get that feeling good is a good thing, not just for me, but for all those people around me. Everybody benefits. So
absolutely. I call that the virtuous circle.
Yes.
So I know I make stuff that makes people smile, and because they smile, it makes me smile, and it just this circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Exactly. And this is honestly why I think it could change the planet, right? Because if we're going around looking after our, you know, being really 100% responsible, if you like, for our own vibration, for our own happiness, then, you know, without us knowing it, you see, my good energy affects my whole household without them even knowing, without them coming out of their bedrooms. You know, I've got older teenage kids who are in bedrooms quite a lot. But do you know what I mean? Like, I know, and beyond, you know, like I know that that energy affects other people who are closer to me. You know, people feel it. And but you know, like you do a piece of art, it makes you feel happy, it makes somebody else smile, and then that person goes out and they smile at the bus driver. And that bus driver then does something nice for the next person on the, you know, it goes on, it ripples out. We all know that. And this is what's possible with this, you know, energy of you know, of joy, you know, of just, or feeling just satisfied or at peace. You know, all of those are great ways to be, aren't they? And when we resonate there, then this is where I'm coming back to that thing about you can't change people. You can't. I mean, it's good to you know, like, just take that off the, you know, agenda. But what you can do is affect your environment. If you are feeling, you know, I'm doing this painting, and I've come out of my studio or my bedroom or wherever I am, and I'm feeling like, oh, that was just so great to get into the zone, to be at one with oneness, to really fill myself up in that way. You come out radiating like that.
Yes.
It is unlikely, if you hold that steady and keep basking in that energy, that anybody's going to come to you with that guilt thing going on.
Right.
Because
okay. It's almost
of the law of attraction, right? So it is a law. I promise you, I've been around this for a long time. It really is almost impossible for somebody to turn up who is going to feed into that guilty energy that sometimes you do have. When you're really filled up like that, they just don't show up. They just don't,
It's almost like a shield that bounces people off.
They'll have a different conversation with you. And they will, and you stay steady with that. You keep doing your art. You keep just a little bit a day. Just keep allowing and letting it grow and doing it in a way that feels good to you. And as fast as you want it to be. It doesn't have to be, lots and lots. There's no rules here, but just, just do what feels good, and watch how people around you start to fit in around that. They're only showing up as guilty, like, feeding into that guilty thing right now because you have that energy inside of you.
So you're enabling that, right? Okay.
Yes. I mean, it sounds like you're not. No, please do not feel at fault or that anything's wrong here. But it's like gravity. It's just a law. So if whatever energy you're feeling is what you're going to get back, and in some ways that can sound terrible, but in other ways it's a great indicator. It's a great help, because you can say, oh, so and so is coming to me angrily or something. Is there something that's angry inside of me?
Okay.
Having that or, or I'm feeling guilty and they're bringing some sort of anger in, and is that sort of a match to that? And we start to see the other people around us. Children are brilliant for this, as mirrors, right?
Okay.
Children are brilliant at this because they pick up on mummy or daddy's energy on something. Two major questions I ask people to think about is like, what do I want and what do I need? Now, for a guilty person, that's going to feel like a hard question to ask, but try, because if you're willing to answer that question, what do I want and what do I need, and start in some small way responding to that. I need a bit more time to myself. I need to just breathe. I need to just go and look at the sky and breathe, and whatever it might be. I need to just have 10 minutes today sketching or something, I need, like, really. And then if you can just keep responding to that in any small way throughout your day, what do I want, what do I need, and do that, then your whole kind of body and soul starts to get that you're really now listening, and you'll find that over time your capacity for taking on, for really sort of tending to your energy and getting what you need, getting that joy back into your life will increase.
So I've been scribbling down tips, almost as in what practical things people can do so far in terms of dealing with the guilt. And number one is to witness the guilt, to acknowledge the guilt. Number two is to ask yourself, what do you really need? What do you really want? Take time to ask that, but to ask it regularly, so you get used to responding to that question. And number three is find ways to insert a new energy. Well, thanks for giving us just a little snippet of tea today. Where can we see more of you, and where are you at with your book?
Just finished the first draft of the Selfish book, so just working on the edits of that now. I have this program called Future Self Now, and I do one-on-one clients. I'm doing a pay as you can at the moment, just during the lockdown. So if people would like to have a test a session with me, that's also possible for free for 20 minutes. So that's where you can find me. I've got just a quote for you that you might want to use. It's Abraham Hicks, who I absolutely love. For some people it's a bit woo-woo, but they say you can't thrive without perpetuating thriving. So for me, that's what artists do, right? Is they perpetuate thriving, because they say, that it's such an expression. You're being the vehicle for thriving. By your joy, you perpetuate it, right? And so and like you said, it's that cycle of you know, I thrive, you enjoy it, and then I thrive because you're enjoying it, and so on round. And you expand, and then they expand, and you expand, and you know.
Yeah.
So good to see you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.